Go further with the American Express Business Gold Card. Earn 3 times membership rewards points on flights and prepaid hotels when you book through AmexTravel.com. Whether your destination is a business conference or a client meeting, your purchases will help you earn more points for future trips. Experience more on your travels with Amex Business Gold. Terms apply. Learn more at americanexpress.com/business-gold. Amex Business Gold Card. Built for business by American Express.
Hey, Fidelity. How can I remember to invest every month?
With the Fidelity app, you can choose a schedule and set up recurring investments in stocks and ETFs.
Oh, that sounds easier than I thought.
You got this.
Yeah, I do. Now, where did I put my keys?
You will find them where you left them.
Investing involves risk, including risk of loss. Fidelity Brokerage Services, LLC, member NYSE, SIPC.
Whether you like it or don't like it, learn to love it because it is the best thing going.
And welcome back to the Boundary Corner podcast. Along with my partner, Brian Siegel, and tonight our special guest, Kolby Crawford, from 247. I am Curtis Wilson, and we are brought to you by Moments on the Maury. Looking for a weekend getaway? Moments on the Maury might be exactly what you're looking for. Owned by a proud Hokie located just outside Lexington, Virginia. The place gives you fishing, kayaking, or just relaxing in or by the river out back. So take a look at the link in our comment section. If you're looking for something this spring or summer, or maybe even next fall, trying to make a game, visit that website there, the Airbnb, and also at Instagram at Moments on the Maury. Kolby Crawford has returned to the Boundary Corner podcast. Kolby, how are you doing this evening, my man?
Doing well, gentlemen. Might have some later spring break plans going down to the Maury River. Thinking about that. Intro video was awesome, so appreciate you guys having me back on. I always feel bad. I always get the invite so cordially, and I feel like every time you guys invite me, I'm in a time vortex. I'm in Florida. I'm in North Carolina. I'm in Charleston chasing some waves or something, but we got it in, so looking forward to talk some football here.
Hey, man, every time we hit you up, you're on spring breaks. That's a good thing for you because you get to step away. You get to recharge the battery a little bit, do a little something different. So glad you got to do that. Glad you're on with us tonight. It's going to be a lot of fun. Always love chopping it up with you, especially when it comes to recruiting, transfer portal, all of that, man. You do such a good job in that space, so we really appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, well, before we get into football, let's give the old salute, the old rest in peace. Men's basketball season came to an end last night. For those who are saying they're probably going to be in the NIT, no, I'm sorry. I cannot get excited about going to the NIT. Not this year. But, Kolby, I know you were mentioning before, as busy as you were, kudos to Kolby Crawford. Busy man with all the football stuff. Makes it to 6 games this year, which is impressive. Again, we know how much you're working with the football stuff. To make 6 games this year, that's pretty impressive. But what's your take just from what you saw with basketball this year? And we know it's not your it's not your full board thing, but we know you got an opinion.
Yeah, I think it was around 6. I'm in that neighborhood. But, yeah, I think any way you slice it, you cut it, stakeholders, fans, players, staff, anyone involved, I think would tell you it was a disappointment of a season, right? When you saw what you brought in, how the roster was formed ahead of the year, it was kind of like, okay, now or never type moment, right? You obviously get Neoklis Abdallas, who rated a 5-star, and that experiment kind of goes the way it does, right? And you bring in the transfers. Monty Hansberry, he plays out of his mind. Honorable mention, gets dinged up at the end of the year. Jalen Bedford. You kind of build the roster, and then you really just miss out in so many heartbreakers, right? It almost feels like they've become accustomed to it. You look at, I know it's been harped on so much, but Stanford up 13, with like 2 minutes left. SMU, buzzer beater. Wake Forest the first time. You're down, was it Toby at the time? Not Tyler Johnson. Yeah. You lose on a last-second three-pointer. There was just opportunities. I mean, even UVA, they were down, I think, 16 at the half, and they battled back to lose by 4. They had opportunities right there at the end. It was just a season of, we said it before we went live, living and dying by every shot, and they just died too many times. And who knows where it comes from. It sounds like Mike Young's going to be back. Roster construction, I'm not exactly sure, but definitely a very disappointing season on paper as to what was projected going into the year for Virginia Tech.
Yeah, when you look at the roster top to bottom, it's probably one of the more just talented rosters. Definitely probably the best roster Mike Young's had in a few years, for certain. And it just felt like, whether it was underachieving, not closing out games, there was like something different. Obviously, injuries played a factor in there with, you having 3 key pieces missing significant time or playing through injuries, and it was just one of those years where it felt like you saw glimpses of what they could be at times, but they weren't able to do it consistently enough, and they dropped way too many games in close fashion that on paper they should have won, and in some cases won handily.
Yeah.
100%. I mean, that was the Stanford and that was the Wake games. Like, to me, that was like the beginning of the end, because you come in and you have such a great 10-2. The only 2 losses were right after Kobe messed up his ankle down in the Bahamas. They lose to a bubble VCU team. You lose to an NCAA tournament team in St. Mary's, right? And they gathered it back when they beat UVA on Christmas Eve or New Year's Eve, excuse me. It was like, wow, this team's like they're doing what they normally don't do. Like, normally when they have this happen, it just
tumbles out of control. Yeah,
exactly. Bad. They fight UVA, and it's like, this is great because Toby's going to be back soon. Yet Tyler gets hurt. That stinks. But it's like they understand how to face adversity. And then those 3 games where you're looking and said, we're better than them. We are better than Wake Forest. We are better than SMU. We are better than Stanford. And again, what you said, Kolby, it's the heartbreaker, a half-court buzzer beater, a 3-pointer with 2 seconds left, and a 3-pointer also very late against Wake. And you're like, there shouldn't be a 3-point game. This game should be over. You're more talented than them. I digress when it comes to that sort of stuff. But basketball season's over. Kolby, you said it too. Everything we're hearing is Mike's back next year. For better or worse, I don't know how that's going to turn out, but
it's going to be hard to build a roster with what is effectively a lame duck coach. So unless we get a situation where we get some sort of coach in waiting type announcement in, the next month or two, where they can kind of build off of that, I'm very concerned about getting the players in here, because if you're looking at building a roster with a lame duck coach, you're talking about constructing it with a bunch of guys that are only there for a year, may or may not, their focus may not be on winning the ACC, on making it to the tournament. Their focus may just be on getting enough time out there to take that next step, right? So I don't know if you're going to necessarily be able to build a team with that mindset that can do the things you want to do from the end goal, which is to go out there and try to win the ACC and make it to the tournament. It's going to be a very difficult path for that team in that situation. Like I said, unless you get a coach in waiting type situation in the next couple of months.
We'll see. We'll see. That's all we can do is see and wait, and in a way, hope, because you do hope the coaching waiting happens, because, like you said, Brian, that at least gives the stability of what's going to go on forward. If Mike Young chooses to potentially retire, maybe in the next year or two. All right. So, Kolby, we brought you in. We've got to talk football. We've got to talk recruiting from all angles, both portal and obviously the class of 2027, which is just getting kicked off. So I'll start out here. You guys, Evan, Matei, you guys were the absolutely lifeblood of portal information. Y'all's updates, your tweets, the tracker. The tracker is the greatest thing y'all have. Like, I just go to you or one of y'all's page. Let me see who we offered. Does it make sense? You guys crushed it in all facets. So a tip of the cap to the entire 247 and you especially. But I'm going to preface this by some of the questions we're going to ask about the portal. Some's going to be Penn State specific. Some are going to be not, because we took so many Penn State guys. But let's take Penn State transfers out of it. And now you got to get your list and be like, let me throw that behind, because there's a bunch of them here. Taking them out of the equation, which of the players who landed at Virginia Tech, non-Penn State, to me had the most interesting journey as you started looking at their backstory and where they were coming from and maybe where they were out of high school?
Yeah, that's a great question. First off, thank you guys. I appreciate it. The transfer portal is pretty crazy. Those first couple of days, I mean, even years past, every time that cycle opens. Thankfully, this year it wasn't like during the semester and like final season, because you're getting like maybe 4 hours of sleep, you know, your phone's buzzing, like I'm scared to show any loved ones my screen time during that. So it is definitely, I mean, it's a wild, look, it's a great time, but it's also a very wild ride you're hanging on. So it was crazy. Now, going back to your question though, there's a couple different guys. Like one that I think of that I think not from Penn State, but it's going to be an impact guy and has a little bit of a crazy journey. Keyshawn Brown, coming from Duke, had a very good season there. Duke, obviously the ACC champion, and he was one where he camped at Virginia Tech. You know, it was from Kernsville, North Carolina, I believe, East Forsyth High School, I think. I might be talking out of turn there, but he camped at Virginia Tech when he was coming out. And Fontel Mines, I believe it was that first year with Brent Pry when Mines was on staff, and Mines didn't offer him at wide receiver coming out of the camp, right? Now he goes on to Duke, the in-state school, and does what he does. All ACC caliber player, and then coming out of the portal, that's kind of how Mines' entry point is. Like, look, man, I'm sorry, it was a miss eval. I should have offered you. So I think that's one that's interesting, not from Penn State, and I think, you know, he's going to factor pretty early right there in the slot position. You've seen what he's been able to do in the conference already. Another one I think is Justin Terry, who's also someone I think could contribute pretty early. Ohio State transfer offensive tackle, and his relationship goes back with Matt Moore. Matt Moore has been at Virginia Tech now for a couple years. And Justin Terry was recruited to West Virginia under Matt Moore. Now, when Moore jumped and you saw guys like Cal Tuner, Lucas Austin, and Tomas Remack follow, I guess Terry, you know, decided to go to Ohio State, follow Tyler Bowen over there, go play for Ryan Day, and then, you know, found his way back to Virginia Tech this last cycle. So I think that is definitely one to watch. I think those are two names to watch. Trying to think about some other names. Cortez Harris, he visited Virginia Tech in the past. Edge rusher from Penn State, another one. I think as the edge position continues to flesh out, but he went to Penn State, so I know we weren't talking Penn State guys. Justin Bell, I believe, had a relationship with Matt Moore, but chose Michigan State over West Virginia. I believe that was one of his final groups, the Michigan State transfer offensive tackle. And I'm trying to think about who else has a connection. I think those are some of the – yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I think that was kind of it. And then Eric Mensah, the last one I'll say, is one who was obviously committed to Virginia Tech out of high school, right? And then turned to Ohio State and then found his way back. So just broad stroke, like you said, interesting stories. I would say those guys. Mensah was committed to Tech, and then when the stature of Virginia Tech and Ohio State at the time, and even still, you know, they're still kind of on two different playing fields. On James Franklin has raised the floor there, but, you know, flipping to Ohio State, I would say those were the most interesting storylines from the transfers.
Yeah, I know when we were doing a lot of the kind of the breakdown of the guys that were targets, you know, Terry was the guy that we were really excited about, you know, not only because The tackle room needed to be rebuilt from the ground up. We saw the lack of depth last year be a big issue, especially as injuries stacked up as the season went along. Rebuilding that tackle room certainly seemed like a priority for Matt Moore and for Coach Franklin. So excited to see him in the building.
And I know that's one that dragged on. I'm trying to think. I know we'll get into it, but I remember when Ethan Grunkmeyer hadn't officially signed and people were losing their minds.
Yeah. They were losing their minds.
There was a week period there where it was like everyone was on edge. Because
it was right.
It came out national, like the national guy said, Grunk is expected to sign with the Hokies, and then radio silence for a week, 8 or 9 days, something like that.
It's been long enough. I'll tell you the story on why the Grunk news originally broke. Right, it was because Prebula's agent had talked to reporters, right, and said Grunk is going to Virginia Tech, right, because Prebula was out of the running there. Now, this was before anything was signed, but it was well known, right, behind the scenes. So that's why the initial leak came out. So, I mean, at that point, that's why you make that reporting, right? So now it's been enough. It's been a couple months now to say that. But throughout the process, people are like, it's school getting involved. Or that there really was none of that back channeling going on. He was dealing with a new agent as well in the process. He was working through, I guess, NFL contracts or something and then redlining some items. But there was no wavering. And that's how the initial news broke the week before. It was right after, I think it was midnight, and it was after the Steelers-Ravens game. And that was after the Anthony Midget news is broke. So that game hinged on if Anthony Midget was going to make it to Blacksburg in time. Man, it was just so hectic with people losing their minds.
I think it's this feeling right here from one of our constant listeners, Jim. Yeah, we aren't used to having nice things happen. It's true. It's like, are we going to get the rug pulled out from us?
It does feel like when things start to go a little south, we definitely are used to being
going really south.
Being on the wrong end of that. So I think the pessimism certainly started to kick in pretty quick there.
Remember, not to cut you off, but to stay on that. I remember I got back from my trip. I went out west like halfway through it to go snowboarding, and I came back. And I still see all this discourse. I remember I put in a crystal ball lock of 10 for Grunkmeyer. And somehow that got people more up in arms, like, oh, it's not happening now. I was like, here, let me like settle some concerns. I just remember
you thought you were doing the Lord's work there, and all of a sudden you're getting piled on.
Kolby Crawford, I'm going to calm the waters. Instead, it's like you threw a giant boulder, and it's like, no. Jeezy. Well, let's do this. Because of the collective, at least this podcast, myself, Brian, Talley, Shelton, we all think Ethan Grunkmeyer, without a doubt, the most important transfer, whether Penn State or outside Penn State. But I think I know you're going to answer this because you gave it away when you were talking a little bit earlier. But which other Penn State transfer do you believe is the key to this portal class?
Yeah, I know we were talking Luke Reynolds. I mean, Luke Reynolds is one that jumps off the page, right? Just without thinking.
Yeah.
5-star guy out of high school, has all the tools. Now, maybe he didn't put it together in full force at Penn State, but this is someone like this Ty House guy, right? And in early stuff, and their individual workouts that they've been able to do throwing, now granted with no pads on, no offensive install, you've heard really great things. Like, route tree like a wide receiver, weight is up there to block in line, like all the things you want to hear. And you saw some of that production at Penn State. I think that's a guy that you know what Ty House is going to want to do. You're going to see some 12 personnel. Now, this is an offense. You hear 12 personnel and you think, oh, stagnant. Look at what the Rams do. Like they run a lot of 12 personnel. It's a pretty explosive offense. They're still going to want to push the ball down the field. But, I mean, it's going to be very tight end heavy. I think that's why retaining Benji Gosnell and also having Luke Reynolds is such an asset because they're both great pass catchers, right? They bring an element of surprise, and that's what the tight end can do. You're putting a linebacker on that guy, right? Like you want your tight end to be a better athlete than that linebacker. It creates a mismatch, or put a nickel on him, put whoever. Like both those guys create matchup problems, and that's what Ty Howell continually says, right? Like any good OC is shaping and curating their offense to the talent they have. And when you have that type of talent in the tight end room, and not to mention Jarikus Harrison, who had a really great year last year, and they were very high on, that was a big retention. You had some SEC schools knocking very aggressively at him that I don't think even a lot of people gave, thought to. So that tight end room is in the best shape it's been in. I mean, definitely in the Brent Pry tenure, and probably even stemming back a decade, probably. Like I don't even know. Like It's in a really, really good spot. At other Penn State transfers, like I said, I don't want to who could make an impact immediately. You have Gronk, you have Luke Reynolds. Keon Wiley at linebacker. I think that's going to be another one who's going to factor in that starting rotation. I know over on VTScoop.com, it's like you think out loud because, you hear some NFL feedback of Caleb Spencer wanting to keep him inside, right? But he was sort of that natural star in Brent Pry's defense, and he's come on like there's no way he's not going to be one of the starting 3 linebackers. And I think Noah Chambers probably has the inside track at Mike just based on personnel and what he was able to show. Wiley is probably a little bit more ready inside than to go play outside. So if you want your best 3 backers, I think it's Keon Wiley, Noah Chambers, and Caleb Spencer. But it's just what does that rotation look like? So I think Wiley's going to play a ton of snaps. It's just where does it fit? And then the other one, Kenny Wilsley Jr., they're at nickel. How does that factor in? I think it's going to be hard to keep Jamari DeLoach off the field at nickel, some of those other young guys, but I think you're still going to see him take on quite a heavy snap share. But I would definitely say Ethan Grunkmeyer, like we said, across the board, touches the ball every play. You don't have to look far in college football right now to know, like, Indiana's a really great team. You go bring in a difference maker at quarterback, look what happened. There's so many examples of that quarterback just across football at every level can really be a difference maker. But I think Luke Reynolds and Keon Wiley are the 2 biggest names from Penn State to watch for the 2026 season.
Yeah. I love that you said Luke, and I love that what you were talking about there with the route tree and the passing game, because if there's one thing that we collectively talk about and feel like we didn't see enough is using that tight end to attack the seam of the defense. Yeah. Getting them involved vertically in the passing game. And I feel like, some of that was, if you're going to do that, you've got to have an accurate quarterback because that's a difficult throw to make. So that's number 1, right? Yep. You feel probably a little bit better about taking those kind of shots with someone as accurate that's shown the accuracy that Grunk has to this point. Yeah. But getting a guy, and now, we've seen Benji be able to do it in a limited capacity. Getting him matched up with Benji now, I think that's going to, pay some pretty big dividends in the offense, being able to attack vertically up the seam with the new offense. And obviously, I still think it's going to be a run-first offense. I think we're still, everything's going to go through the running back, but I think being able to attack at every level of the defense with the passing game is going to be a big asset. Let's flip it over. So we talked about the Penn State guys coming in. Which of those non-Penn State guys do you feel is going to be the most important heading into 2026?
Yeah, that's a really great question. My head goes a couple different places. We talked about Justin Terry a little bit at the top. What does that offensive tackle rotation look like? Logan Howland's going to miss the spring down with shoulder collarbone type deal or labrum. So that's going to be something, because I think that would be a name to watch, right? Because like people had him penciled in. Justin Terry, have heard really great things about him early. Johnny Garrett, how does that tackle rotation? Because the offensive line, it starts with those 5 guys up front. Everyone's going to say that. You can have the most accurate quarterback, but it starts with those 5 guys up front in what you want to do. So I think that's big. Another name, I go to the edge rusher position, because when you look at Virginia Tech a year ago, the offensive line couldn't protect in pass pro, and they really didn't get a consistent, effective pressure coming off the edge on defense. Yep. And you lost a guy like Antoine Powell-Ryland who had, 15 sacks to his name, and you just really didn't replace that. And, it allowed defense, it just put so much pressure on the secondary and linebackers to make extra plays when the quarterback could just sit back there. So, Javian Hilson, Sam Okunlola, the late transfer from Colorado. Are those 2 guys your starting edges come VMI? I'm not sure, but I wouldn't rule it out. I've heard good things from Jason Abbey returning, but I think those 2 guys along the defensive line. Now, you feel good on the inside. Elijah Fall, Kamari Copeland, Emmett Law stepping up. You've got more experience there, but you kind of need a difference maker at pass rusher. So I think getting those guys in the building, and as well with backfilling Adarica on the interior, Cortez Harris, Malachi Williams, that's a premier position, and you just brought in all those guys from Penn State to play edge as well. Got Dwight Vick in here, shout out. Try to tell him about the offensive line. I know we're talking about portal specifically, but then they went and recruited 7 in high school? That's the way it needed to be done, because they brought in 5 over 2 cycles with Ron Crook, and it's just not an effective way to build out your board long term. No. Because for better or for worse, some guys aren't going to pan out. Some guys are going to transfer. You just have to over recruit there. So I think those are some names that I would definitely watch.
So it was hilarious. It was 7 freshmen, 4 portal, 11 offensive linemen in effectively the first class of 27. Like it was basically roughly a quarter of the class.
And guess what, Curtis? I don't know your plans for April 18th or whatever, but when you watch that game, they're trying to get it to a point where you can have 2 teams now. Because for the longest time, right? Like it's hard to hold even an effective practice, right? Like you can't even give your guys good looks in practice, right? If you just don't have the numbers, and that's the big thing. It's like, then how are you getting better if you're putting these guys on? Like you just didn't have the numbers there, and like you've heard of that different ranks in this day and age, with how talent is getting spread out. Even with the rosters going to 105, you've heard like you can't run an effective practice if you don't. So that's why you have to get those guys in the building and build it up, especially from the high school ranks, I think. But to do what they did in the portal, Michael Troutman, I know you've got a pretty good center in Kyle Altuner. I think people are really high on him. Personally, I think he's a really nice player there. But Michael Troutman, have heard nice things about him at center. They've just completely overhauled the room, and I think you'll see dividends in practice and getting those good looks that you want.
Yeah, getting the good looks, being able to do. Like for Brent Pry's defense this year, it's I want to be able to do what I want to do, and I want it to be against competition that might actually slow us down.
Yeah.
That is always a plus. Can I ask a quick question about, let's go back to Javion Hilson. You mentioned the war.
Yeah.
Tally's not here, so I get to get on Tally's soapbox. So Javion Hilson, coming out of high school only 1 year ago, was a borderline 5-star. When he goes into the portal, he doesn't get much playing time at Missouri. It's expected. They're an SEC school. They are a pretty good school last year. I think at the end they wavered, whatever. But how does that go into the transfer ranking? Because I think when we all heard his name, it was like, okay, he's a 97. He's a borderline 5-star. He's coming here.
Yeah.
And then it's like he's a mid 3-star. I don't quite get that. Like if he had played significant reps, absolutely, and he didn't look good, he's got to go down. He's not that. But this is a guy who was a true freshman, right?
Yeah.
He was a true freshman last year, right? But what goes into the transfer rankings, just so we can make Tally, who's hopefully safe in Alabama and all the bad activity down there, a little bit happier?
Yeah, hopefully, first and foremost, prayers to Tally and everyone affected by any of the tornadoes going through. It seems like the whole Midwest right now. But for Javion Hilson, you look at him for the 24/7 Sports ranking, was a top 80 prospect. I believe it had a 95 grade on him coming out of high school. Height, weight, speed, measurables. When you look at him, it's like, yep, that's a guy, right? Like, you cut on the tape as well, and you see that. Now the transfer ranking process, right? Like you're ranking 3,000, 3,500 guys in a 2-week span, right? So I'm not on the scouting team personally. I know Cooper Patagna and his boys. I commend them. I forgot to text him. I've texted him between now and then, but I remember when it was all said and done, I was like, wow, man, I hope you're all right, because everyone's busy in it. But trying to watch, evaluate, and get grades out on all these players as they're committing, it's a very busy time. Now, like I said, things slipped through the cracks. I think they finished with an 87 transfer rating on 24/7. I'm not sure what other services had, but yeah, that's maybe one that probably left a little bit to be desired, because he just didn't play much, right? Like he was behind, I believe, Damon Wilson, who is, kind of a really good player down there. Yeah. Sat behind some pretty good talents on that Drinkwitz, his team defense. So, yeah, I know if Tally was here, I'd probably just have to throw in the hat and say, I'm not on the scouting team, but we'll see how it plays out. We'll see if he's vindicated in that ranking or not. I think he's going to outplay his ranking at Virginia Tech by the time it's all said and done.
Yeah, that's good to hear. When you see a guy that was ranked that high coming out of high school, still very young, a lot of eligibility left. So
yeah,
hoping that he's going to come in, take the steps that he needs to. Definitely he's going to get an opportunity, which is, early on something he didn't really get as much of at Missouri. So we certainly have a hole to fill there for him to slide in and get a lot of opportunities pretty quick.
Yeah, 6'3", 241, like that's
he's ready. That's exactly what you want. That's exactly what you want. Let me ask this before we kind of pivot to something else.
Yeah.
you've got this transfer portal tracker. You're kind of following all these guys. You got all these conversations going on. Was there a commit that kind of snuck up on you that you hadn't heard any rumblings or any of that, and all of a sudden, you see things start to come out that, oh, this guy's coming to Virginia Tech?
I would say the biggest surprise of the cycle, without really thinking too hard about it, was Logan Howland. That was one that was super out of left field, really not much like warning or whatever signs, talking to different people. Logan Howland was one that was kind of way out of left field. I think that was really maybe the only one that kind of caught us by surprise. And, he's a guy, obviously dealing with the injury, but, you bring that guy in to be a tackle, right? And probably be in that starting five somewhere. Now we'll see when he's able to get back to football activities, but I think that was the biggest one that was no real heads up, or you weren't really tracking. And it was just like, oh, wow, there he is. He's signed. Like, he's not committed. Like, oh, he's signed. So that was a real stealth visitor. All the other ones, I mean, you had pretty good beats on, and you saw that in the crystal balls and some different notes, or even if you weren't putting in crystal balls, like, hey, keep an eye here. Trying to think about any that were really off the wall. I think all the other ones were pretty wrapped up. A lot of the Penn State guys, there was there was writing on the wall, but
Tally's phone's working.
Yeah.
That's good. That's good. We know that he's safe right now.
Pause. But I think Jaquez White, that was one that was visiting, but, it looked like Tennessee might have had the inside track. But I think really Logan Howland was the only big surprise.
Okay.
Nice.
I like that. I mean, when we looked at the offensive line, like it had to be done. Like there was, there was nothing that, there wasn't enough bodies that you could bring in and be like, oh, that's too many. Like I wanted another guard. I mean, I know I've talked on here. I was like, I would have loved to see one more guard come in with, some playing time at another stop, just to feel a little bit better about it. But, you got, a center now coming in, you got a, handful of tackles coming in. I think that was probably tackle was the room that we had to address. Absolutely.
Yeah. They did that in high school. There. I think guard's interesting, like Brody Meadows, Lath Gannon, Montavious Cunningham, those guys, right? But you need those guys to stay healthy, because it's going to be one way or another. I don't see a way where not all three of those guys play a significant number of snaps. Now, I'm not sure if they stay healthy for 12 or 13 games, great, but
and that's been the problem with all three of them.
Exactly. Birdie's still just getting back. It sounds like, was out since last camp, is just getting back ready to roll here before spring. Montavious was obviously dinged up. I've heard really great things about him. And then Lath, Lath had the deal 2 years ago with the spleen, so it's just been that revolving door. And then at guard, I guess you could kick out some of those other guys, but I see what you're saying there. I think a lot of these guys that were listed as tackles in this high school class will eventually end up moving inside.
Yeah. I can see at least one of those guys for sure moving inside. And it's nice to, with the portal ads, even with Howland, probably missing most or all of spring. It's nice to have guys that you feel like they're not necessarily plug and play, but they should slot in kind of ahead of at least everybody not named Johnny Garrett, probably at the tackle position with what we brought in the portal.
Yeah, I fully agree. And I mean, no one's guaranteed anything, and I feel like that is being relayed very clearly. No one is guaranteed anything. And Logan Howland, Justin Terry, I know Logan's dinged up, but Justin Terry, I think that's definitely a name to watch here as we get closer to fall camp. If he can put it all together, that's someone, I think he's the real deal. Let
me ask this.
You got that one?
What are you going to say, Curtis?
Were you going to take that one?
Yeah, I was going to take this next one.
Okay, got it.
Yeah. I was just, looking at the balance of the remaining eligibility with this portal class, I thought that was an interesting approach that James Franklin took. You got, a couple older guys, but most of the guys with at least 2 years of eligibility left. When we look at that, it's interesting to see, are some of the guys with that a lot of eligibility left, are those guys that you think are going to play kind of significant roles out the gate, or are that more of a looking towards 2027 and kind of looking past, not necessarily looking past this year, but looking beyond just this year in terms of the roster construction?
Yeah, that's a really great question. I got asked this on my show it was last Monday. I think it was episode 70 of Kolby's Corner. And it was a great question. It was like how James Franklin kind of attacked this portal. Like, I think this is by far going to be his biggest portal class at Virginia Tech ever. Like, when you look at what he did at Penn State, I don't think he ever took more than 7 over the last 3 years when it's really been this transfer portal era. And all those guys mostly that he took at Penn State were contributors at their school, like either at a lower level or even at a Power 4 level. But guys, you kind of knew what their standing was, right? Like, not a flyer, a guy with 3 years left, more of just a plug and play. And obviously the scenario is different here at Virginia Tech. You're building out an entire roster and you need to backfill. You can't just bring in 31-year guys or you're going to be back in that boat next year, right? So I think it's definitely a little bit different. I wouldn't say that's a strategy moving forward. Now, for example, Matthew Henderson in that tight end room. They completely rebuilt that tight end room to a degree that Virginia Tech hasn't been in, but you've got Jarikis, Benji, and Luke already ahead of him. But that's going to be a really quality player soon, right? So you had to bring in that quality depth, like I think of Justin Bell. I think they like him at tackle, and you had to rebuild that offensive line room. Is he expected to play 600 snaps this year? No, I don't think anywhere close to that. But, they like his profile to bring him in with 4 years left. Javian Hilson, I think, is a little bit different. That's a guy with 4 years who I think you could see play and factor in immediately. So it varies a little bit, but I would definitely say a lot of it is projecting forward. Now, that's not to say that they're punting on this year. They still built out this roster very effectively with weapons and along the lines to go and compete immediately in the ACC. But look, I mean, if you're the CEO of a company and you're a shareholder, you don't want to know that you're putting all your chips in for Q4 like this year, right? Okay, this year, and then whatever happens the next cycle, like, all right,
but it's over. Yeah, but it's really funny though. Again, like, we are looking at it and we say, man, we have all these kind of younger guys, multiple years of eligibility, and then you just kind of just start thinking, but there's Quayshawn Brown. Wait a second, he's got 2 years left.
Yeah.
Wait a second, Howland's got 2 years. Like, these are guys who have played significant snaps and the D1 level in high-level games, and it's like, well, wait a second. Well, if he slips in here and he does this and he does this and this guy – well, wait a second. What Brian said earlier, the issues where we had last year were slowly filling in. Like, we're not worried about interior defensive line. That was fine last year. Elijah Fall comes back, Kamari Copeland back, and that's where it's like you don't want to get all your eggs in one basket, but to James Franklin credit, he's put enough in of experienced guys for this year in the right spots where we're getting a little bit of hope. Like, it's a little bit of hope to say, you know what? If certain things click, the spots where we struggled with last year are filled.
Yeah.
Quarterback upgrade, slot receiver, better tight end. You're bringing back running backs who had a really good season. So
cornerback room.
But then, too, again, what you just said, Kolby, we couldn't put 30 players out there. God, we're rebuilding again. It's like, well, we could be good in 26. But wait a second. We could still be good in 27.
Yeah.
And then you keep looking, it's like there's not right now, there's not where you feel like there's a fall off. It's like he's truly trying to build it out for a long-term run.
Yeah, and this almost sounds bad to say, but it's almost like the formula for successful programs, right? Like, you recruit like 25 really good guys in that top 25, top 20-ish high school rank, and look, those guys are going to transfer out, right? But if you stack those classes year after year and you continue to hit your spots in the portal and you get a quarterback you can get behind, like, the secret formula, yeah, you bring in really great coaching like Indiana and a Heisman quarterback and you can win. But, like, these programs that are relatively at the top, good coaching, which Franklin has proven to do, was a game away from the national championship a year ago. And, bringing in talent and evaluation, which he's obviously shown in his time at Penn State, and 2 weeks at Virginia Tech was able to get their highest class in 15 years at least. So, like I said, it almost sounds like asinine for me to say, oh, well, but yeah, it's really how you kind of need to build it. And I think they've laid a really good foundation. They've built out a really nice staff on the back end that Virginia Tech, at least, I know Penn State certainly has had, but Virginia Tech has not had in that recruiting arm, and especially even on the field coaches with their recruiting acumen. I think they've done an incredible job. And I mean, I don't see it slowing down anytime soon. Like, this 27 class is certainly I'm going to be one to watch. And I think, they've still got a lot of work to do. You're drinking from a fire hose. The transfer portal is nice because you have all these connections from Penn State. That 26 class is nice because you have all those Penn State commits, right? So it's kind of easy. But now, hey, look, it's fully Virginia Tech now. And you're still getting your bearing in the state. You can come down from Penn State, and Virginia's a nicety, but now it's a necessity, right?
Yeah,
so
100%.
And I think too, I was just going to throw this in real quick. I think too, one of the things that Franklin has shown a really high acumen at in his time at Penn State in this transfer portal era is he retains a lot of his players in those transfer portal cycles. So, when we talk about the guys coming in, I don't anticipate, at least at this stage, that, after 2026, that these guys that we brought in with 2-3 years of eligibility are going to be looking for another stop. So you're really just talking about next year's transfer portal. To your point, Kolby, looking at a much smaller transfer portal class because you're really only kind of filling in those holes versus having to fully rebuild a roster and kind of compensate for the fact that the 24 and 25 classes probably weren't where you wanted talent level, especially at offensive line.
Without a doubt. I mean, that is the point, right? Like, and I think you'll see, hopefully with some of the stuff they're trying to implement, you'll see more of this, like a premium on retention, which is already right. It's not always who you bring in, it's who you keep, right? And I think you're going to see more of that. And if that's where, really talent evaluation is going to become paramount. That's really what's going to evaluate the best schools who, thrive in this environment.
Appreciate that. All right, before we're going to talk a little 2027 as we get near the end here, but there is one situation, if you feel comfortable talking about it and everything that went down, the Kamarian Morgan situation, what went down. Was there ever a point that he could have still been a Hokie? Was there anything that could have kept him here? Because he looked like, again, he was 6'4", 250, looked like a stud edge guy coming out of Baylor. But what – do you feel like – can you talk about it? Do you feel comfortable that we're far enough off of it now?
Yeah, I mean, I'll definitely talk about it. I just don't think, of all the stories of, the Grunkemeyer one, I touched on earlier, there's some juicy stuff that happened, certainly, and, we'll have to come back on and when I brain dump it all. But this one, I really just don't think it was as exciting or there was that much to it as people thought, right? So the news comes out that Cam Morgan, he's already in Blacksburg, right? He's already there, but he can't enroll because his grades aren't there. And I know he went back and, amended it and got his grade changed from Baylor. Why is he still not signed at these other institutions? It was really just an issue of those grades and the way he built out a schedule. Now, coming from Baylor, it's a little bit tougher, but just really, you still have to be able to get into the school. And it was right after the news dropped that Virginia Tech was not going to be able to get him through admissions, issue with the admissions process, that a Big Ten school tried to trip him immediately. It was one look at the transcripts, and they were like, yep, no shot here. So now I think a lot of people were like, okay, how did this go this far? How did this not get checked before? But I honestly, I know it was James Franklin must be so frustrated with Burris. I think it was an understanding on all fronts. I mean, genuinely, that's where a lot of the frustration is because you've seen it in years past with Ramon Brown. I'm trying to think about Hellcat. I remember, I can't even think of his name, from down in Roanoke. I know that was another one, but there have been multiple instances where Virginia Tech can't get a guy admitted, and then you see what he goes on to do at different institutions. But this was one where he still is not signed. Very highly rated prospect, right? Did not see much on-field production there at Baylor, and then just did not have the transcripts or grades to get in. So really, there's not much more beyond it than that. It was just they couldn't get him into school, and even other schools that tried to pounce on it, once they saw that issue and they saw the transcripts, they were like, yeah, we have no shot here either. So, yeah. Yeah,
I know West Virginia was making a pretty big run even, later into February, and still, we haven't seen anything official come across on that yet.
And you know what? I hope situations like this shine the light on for all the kids who are going in. And I'm not sure if it was grades or maybe classes, right? But if you are going Division I, like any of these kids, wherever you're going, you need to have that stuff in order. You honestly do. And that tells me, I'll say this, if I'm a parent and I'm about to send my kid to Baylor, I'm going to be thinking twice. Like, okay, you know what? We just saw what happened to Cam Morgan. He came down here. He didn't get much PT, but he got his look, his body. He was a very high valuable commodity. And the classes you made him take basically screwed him out of going anywhere else.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's also a lot harder going from institution to institution, right? Like private school to public school. Like if you're going into Notre Dame or Stanford, if you're going to now it definitely did him no favors right there, and especially the class schedule that it built out, it sounds like. So there's a ton of factors, but I will say, like I said, I mean, the athletes are finally being compensated like they should, right? And we'll see what guardrails or whatever comes about it, but I think we can all agree that the product on the field is heavily influenced by them. Great. Still, until CBA, whatever happens, I don't even know if that's going to come to be. You're still students. And in this day and age, there are more people and more opportunities pretty much widespread across the board to online classes, tutors. I mean, it is the easiest generation possible. I feel very confident saying to maintain grades and just kind of keep that. I know it's student athlete, but let's just say keep that on the side and keep football as the priority. So that's definitely something that coaches watch, right? Like knowing, understanding, and talking to different coaches about. So it's a shame it all played out that obviously he was in Blacksburg and that, it developed so far, but something that really both parties I don't think should be up in arms about. Yeah.
Just one of those things that it didn't shake out the way anyone wanted, but that, there wasn't necessarily ill will or anything like that from a process standpoint. It's just one of those things.
Yeah.
All right. Let's flip it. Let's talk a little 2027. Brian, go. Let you go with this one.
You gonna let me ride with this one?
Let you jump on this
All
one.
All right. So we're gonna talk Virginia now. We'll start with the state of Virginia. We got a lot of Virginia. That's important. Who are some of the early favorites in the state that the Hokies have been targeting? I know, James Franklin kind of had to hit the ground running with this class on top of closing out 26 and everything with the portal. But who are those guys to watch in the state that are high on the Hokie board?
Yeah, I just said it on my show about an hour prior to this, and I wouldn't be shocked within the next week if I toss in a crystal ball. I feel really good about where Virginia Tech sits with number 6 player in the state, offensive tackle, Junior Sanders from Woodbury Forest. Top offensive tackle in the state. Woodbury Forest is a program that Virginia Tech has made strides in recent years. You look at Sheldon Robinson. They've done an incredible job with Junior Sanders for years now, but especially with, James Franklin. He came to that Miami game. You look at Buddy Wegdom, Hudson Zell, PWO, very close with him. Take there from Woodbury Forest. I think they sit in a really nice spot. He visited last week prior to Virginia Tech spring break. I wouldn't say anything jaw-dropping coming out of that visit. I just think they sit in a great spot, and I think they position themselves super well. I don't see anyone else really making themselves get in the mix. He's on that first OV weekend. I really like where Virginia Tech sits. Could see a crystal ball. So that's one, which is obviously a nice 4-star tackle. You love that. Okay. Someone I've been pounding the table for to be rated properly, Knass Sullivan from the St. James Academy up there in Springfield, VA. You got Overton coaching him up there. I think that's one where there's a ton of really big suitors. I think he is very underrated talent, even still with a rankings bump in the state of Virginia. I think that's going to be a little bit of uphill battle. Chris Whitehead, the number 1 player in the state, Virginia Tech was not a serious contender, and Virginia Tech has definitely entered that mix. I would not be shocked to see them make a massive run at him to try and make a big statement in James Franklin's first cycle saying, hey, this is the type level we're on. I would definitely not rule that one out. Elijah Hutchinson, guy from down the road, from Roanoke originally, reclassed, moved down to Georgia, go to Rabun Gap prep school, and then come back up to North Cross and Roanoke. Like I said, Clemson, Ohio State, a ton of big suitors there, but they're going to try and get him on campus a ton. Virginia Tech's going to be in the mix. Noah Glover, I think will give Virginia Tech a good look. If I were to put in the prediction right now, I think Georgia's probably got the inside track there. Okay. They've done a really great job. Carter Jones, Clemson, but Virginia Tech's made a big push. But I would say as of right now, I still feel like Clemson has the inside track there. They've been doing so well for, I feel like, a year and a half now. James Franklin has completely changed the calculus on all of these, though, and I don't want that to be outruled. Like what I said with Chris Whitehead should not go like under the radar. Like James Franklin has completely changed the view. Like if you got quotes or interviews from these guys, it's like, yeah, Virginia Tech state school, but it's completely changed the outlook of it. I think Carter Jones will give them a fair look. He's one who's going to want to commit early here in April, but I still like Clemson. I think Virginia Tech could be a close second there, and in the portal age, you never know. But I like Clemson. We talked about Junior Sanders, DeMarcus Brown. I think Virginia Tech's going to make a push to try and flip from Roanoke, from Virginia. He's from Roanoke, committed to Virginia currently. Yeah. I talked with him recently, has no visits on the books. Virginia Tech tried to get him on campus there for a junior day, didn't get it. Ivan Lewis is one to watch. I don't know. I thought I had a decent read on it. I thought Virginia Tech, South Carolina were sort of those two schools. We'll see. Now, if Alabama offers, maybe that changes things. Ohio State, if he's a take there. I think at the end of the day, this is one that if it stretches out and comes down the line, Virginia Tech sits in a good spot. But I don't know. I know he's visiting Alabama. If they offer and it's a committable offer, I could see that changing it a little bit. But it's someone that Fontel Mines has known since he was in 8th grade. Been in a great spot. That one of that top OV weekend. So I know we're just going down the line, but Kamari Hudson, he was just at Clemson as well for the elite retreat, I believe is what they call it. He was going to be up in Blacksburg for junior day, but wasn't able to make it. It was when all that snow was going on. So like a 4.5 hour trip wasn't in the books. Also, I think an underrated guy there. I think he could be close to top 5 in the state. Actually just talked with him. Hang on. Let's see. This is live television. UVA, Syracuse, Clemson, Tennessee, NC State, Virginia Tech, all kind of in the mix. But that's why he's really fleshing out a lot of his thoughts on these visits here. Virginia Tech did well, but you've got real competition there. So that's where these visits do kind of differentiate. People want to talk about does NIL drive everything? Like, no, but it can kind of be the decider. You're really close on a lot of these schools as you come down the stretch, and it's just minute things. Are you close to a Chipotle? Are you close to it's different for everyone what you're looking for, right? But sure. So that was his list. I'm just going through some of the top guys. Sam Faneuil, tight end out of Benedictine. I know Ty Howell was in to see him, but his visit schedule is not sure. I think Virginia Tech can make a push there. They're also in it for tight end Jordan Karoff from Ohio, I believe. Rye Cove, offensive lineman Ethan Lawson. I don't expect Virginia Tech to be in the mix long term. I think West Virginia might have the inside track there. Brody McNeil committed to Ohio State. I don't see them flipping there. Matt Williams, corner from Norfolk, Virginia. I've seen him play a ton of times at UA Baltimore, scrimmages at Maury football games. A dynamic athlete. He was playing quarterback for them. He's doing everything. Haven't heard much with Virginia Tech, and Virginia Tech's had a really hard time breaking into Maury, even with all their success. So one to track here. Zavon Ziggy Miller from Huguenot. I think Virginia Tech sits well there. And then we'll just close it out with a couple names to watch. I think Derek Fisher, cousin of Michael Vick. I know we had Dwight Vick in the chat at Bethel High School. Really just elite athlete. Probably projects as a safety. Committed to Virginia. I think Virginia Tech's going to make a big run there. They like him. And then as well with Lonnie Andrews, cousin Jamari Deloach, committed to Virginia. 3-year starter at Oscar Smith High School now. I wouldn't be shocked to see Virginia Tech make a pretty big push. They tried to get him up for a junior day. Still pushing. I talked with him not long ago. I know he's going back to Virginia, I believe, late March, and no other trips on the books yet. But I know Virginia Tech's pushing for it. So I know I just said a lot. I just pulled up the list and kind of went down through the state. But I would say that's most of the state, probably heat check.
Okay. All right.
He almost answered the question we have after this one, nailing it. Like, who are we trying to flip? And as I'm looking, it's like, that's a UVA guy. Oh, there's another UVA guy. Sounds like we're just basically trying to flip some of those guys. But we'll ask that in a second. But let me ask this because I think you mentioned it. Chris Whitehead, out LC Bird, down not far from me and Brian, 20, 30 minutes down on south side of Richmond. You said that's the target because you said the way I heard it is that's the most important guy in this class. Yeah. Because if you get Chris Bird, number 1 player in the state, top 10 positionally, top 40 nationally.
Yeah.
Stud. What has to happen? Does there have to be breaks? Is What has to happen to land him, you think?
Well, I mean, it's perception, right? Like, I think that's the biggest thing. Like, you can have rankings, your own eval of him or whatever, but you see that number 1 next to his name. And, like, better or for worse in this day and age, that goes a long way socially, just in general, you know, like, it just does matter. It just really does. And, like, I think that's why it's such a big deal, is because they want to cement and stamp, hey, this is Virginia Tech. You're not coming into our backyard anymore. I know Virginia Tech hasn't been accustomed to getting that number 1 guy in the class for cycles and cycles, but this is the way it is around here. What does it take? It takes NIL, right? Like, that's obviously a really big factor in these recruitments. It takes staying consistent. You get him on that first official visit weekend, which is a really big sign already. In the open periods, connecting with him, getting him up for a spring visit. You know, Richmond, I've been making the trip Richmond to Blacksburg here a lot recently. It's not that bad. You can get him on for spring practice, get him up for the spring game, you know, just working those details out. So I think it's that. And then obviously in this day and age, NIL, right? They position themselves super big. And I think, you know, showing your vision. I said James Franklin changed the calculus. Like, these, you can do everything right, but if they don't believe in your vision and they believe Brent Pry's a lame duck and they kind of see the writing on the wall, yeah, that's a really tough hill to come down from. But James Franklin, they can see what he's building, the changes in Merriman, what he's sort of pitching. I think that's the biggest thing with him. And I honestly wouldn't rule it out. Like, I'm not coming on here blowing smoke. Like, Noah Glover, I don't see Virginia Tech getting in the mix with. Knaz Sullivan, I could see it. I think he's going to have some really big suitors. Carter Jones, I don't know if Virginia Tech's going to do it, but I think Chris Whitehead is one where they're certainly in the mix, and not only for the fact of that number 1 ranking next to his name, they believe in the eval. Like, yeah, okay, 6'3", 240, like, yeah, that's a pretty good prospect, right? Like, but someone especially with that ranking, with that stature, that standing, it's like, it's kind of just putting the whole state and you know, the whole Mid-Atlantic, the whole ACC, the whole whatever coastline on notice. Like, all right, you're not going to come into our backyard anymore. This is what is to be expected with this staff.
Let's talk about that a little bit more, because, you know, you get a guy like Whitehead, say that comes to fruition. Like, what are the tailwinds attached to that from just a 26 class and potentially even looking forward to 27? I know someone like a Carter
27, 28, Brown. 26 is already signed, bro.
Yeah, sorry, 27, 28, my bad. What does that look like? I know somebody like a Carter Jones who's committing in the next month and a half or so. You know, that may not play a factor in his recruiting, but would something like that have tailwinds for the 27 class, and how would that play for 28 as well?
Without a doubt. That's what I'm saying. Like, it's so massive, not only for 27, because you get that guy, he rallies in, but I'm just talking about 28, projecting forward, a guy in middle school right now who's in Virginia or whatever. Like, it's great because it's my business, right? Like, the graphic culture where you're on Instagram or Twitter and you see this big number 1 Virginia going to Virginia Tech, but that's what it is. It's perception. It matters, because for a lot of people, that's their first touch point with Virginia Tech or that program. Like, oh, wow, I didn't know that. Like, when you see Jared Curtis go to Vanderbilt, or what was the other one? Keshawn Henderson to Houston, or there's another one where there's even Fernando Mendoza to Indiana or something like that, of that stature, where it's like, that guy's going to this program that hasn't, you know, kind of recruited at that clip. Now you see USC, Michigan, Alabama, Georgia getting those guys, like, okay, but when you start to see continued success on the trail, it's like, wow, we can stay close to home. We can represent our state at a program that's invested in us at a younger age, as opposed to out-of-state schools, just naturally. Like, if Virginia Tech is not on guys in the state of Virginia before every other school, then that's on them, right? Like, you can't let those guys go walking. So I think that's why it's so big. And 28s, 29s, 30s, seeing that, parlaying that down the road, it's super big. And especially in the 27 class. Now, I wouldn't say he's like the most vocal guy, but if you get that, it's like, okay, like, we're doing this now. It's not a 2-year, 3-year rebuild. Like, they're really getting after it right now. Let's go hop on the bandwagon.
Love that. Curtis, what you got?
Well, I'll ask this, because you mentioned them all. If you had one guy to currently say that was committed, and I'm going to go UVA because the ones you mentioned are committed.
Yeah.
Who flips? Who do you think your quickest flip is there?
So I listed DeMarcus Brown, Derek Fisher, and Lonnie Andrews.
Correct. Yep, we mentioned those 3.
See, I think Derek – I don't know, man. I would say Derek Fisher. I don't know about Lonnie Andrews, though, because that quarterback board is going to have to shape out But I mean, like, to go play with your cousin, right?
Yeah.
And then if you're Derek Fisher, right, like, who your cousin is in Virginia Tech, like both those guys, I feel like there's a familial draw there, right? Like, and I for Lonnie, I think a lot about Jamari DeLoach. Like, he was committed to Cincinnati. Like, that was so weird. I remember, this is such a weird anecdote side note, but I was in Disney World for my sister's birthday, and I'm on the phone with Evan G. Watkins, like, about to put in a crystal ball for Jamari to Virginia Tech. And it was just so weird the way that whole thing went, where Michigan was on him and it died down. It was going to be Virginia Tech fully and then Cincinnati. And he commits to Cincinnati, and it never felt right. Like, even me, like, covering his recruitment, going to state track meets and everything, it was just like, Cincinnati, what happened? And then that was a really big flip. Like, I remember, like, still, it was being one of my favorite signing day memories ever, like, breaking the news of his flip right there, right? Like, that was insane. One of my, honestly, probably my favorite signing day moment of my life. So, like, so far, just breaking that, because, that was a recruitment I feel like I was closest with in that 25 class. Yeah. And it never felt right, and it came all the way full circle. And I just feel like I've, maybe this is just me feeling remnants of that with Lonnie Andrews. But yeah, I was gonna say Derek Fisher, but give me Lonnie Andrews. I think that's one to watch there at the quarterback position.
Awesome. All right, so I'll switch gears a little bit. With the offers that are being reported right now, kind of where things are standing, which areas outside of Virginia have been the kind of heaviest focus for James Franklin for this 27 cycle?
I would say it's pretty spread out, but like, his connections up in the northern mid-Atlantic region, Pennsylvania, Philly area, a lot of prep schools in there, Jersey, into Ohio. But then you've got guys on the staff like Coach Chaos, who's down in Texas, sending out a ton of offers. Anthony Midget's down in Florida sending out offers. You got Norville McKenzie in South Carolina. But I would say a lot of it is focused in that DMV into Pennsylvania area, just because those are the high schools and the coaches and the relationships they've been naturally closest with for the last decade, right? So I would say outside of Virginia, it would be mostly in that northern DMV into Pennsylvania, and then extending outside of that, Ohio, and then parts of the Southeast, Florida, South Carolina, Georgia, with Norville McKenzie kind of driving that train. And obviously, I can't even leave out North Carolina. I would really just kind of say almost up and down the East Coast, from Pennsylvania down and into really Ohio and parts of Texas. Outside of that, you won't see much except for quarterbacks, but I feel like they've made that their territory, right? Like, they'll go Pennsylvania, Howell, in that DC region. You've obviously got the state of Virginia, North Carolina. You've got guys, South Carolina, Georgia, Florida. And yeah, but they've been offering guys in Alabama. I would say mostly North Carolina, and then up through Pennsylvania and some of those guys. It'll be interesting, like, because they're always changing the areas and regions. Like, I know right now, I think Anthony Midget has Florida. I think Hal is the DMV. O'Brien has North Carolina. I think Norville has South Carolina and Georgia. I don't know where Spencer is. Maybe part of Virginia and Texas still. So it's changing. But, yeah, I mean, it's definitely wider than just a 6-hour radius that Virginia Tech's been accustomed to.
Yeah, that was Brian, you had something like Brian. Yeah, literally, Brian wrote this like an hour before you jumped on. But go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, I was just gonna you talked about the 6-hour radius. One of the things Coach Franklin said when he got on board is that if you're gonna compete for college football playoff, you can't just recruit in a 6-hour radius. You got to look. You got to be able to recruit nationally if you're going to be relevant.
Yeah.
You mentioned Texas. Is there other areas that, just from a national perspective, where you're seeing kind of maybe even just one-offs of guys getting offered kind of outside of that traditional footprint that Virginia's been looking at, kind of up and down the East Coast?
Yeah, I would say one-offs. It's not like state of Washington or Oregon, right? It was Alabama, into parts of Alabama, Louisiana. I mean, those states are so hard to crack into when you know the state schools and how those guys get their talent, right? Like with Saban at Alabama, even Gene Chizik at Alabama, even Gus Malzahn. How can I not think of his name? Like those guys. Like, I feel like when you would go during those 10 years at Auburn and Alabama, it was the state of Alabama rankings: Alabama, Auburn, Alabama. Like, and Louisiana the same. You had the Tigers logo, LSU, pretty much for all of them. Like, I feel like those states are kind of the marquee of like keeping in-state talent home. And now they're very talent-rich states. But I would say a couple of offers shot out there. Missouri, nothing too crazy. Some in California, just because if you want those big national recruits, you got a lot of big schools out there. Mater Dei, some big schools.
A lot of quarterbacks out
some
there.
offers out in Utah. What'd you say?
A lot of quarterbacks out there in California.
Yeah, I was about to say that's the other thing is like, but like, yeah, nationally you're going to go find some Like, look at Troy Hune. You know, like I'm saying, think about Brady Edmonds. I think Virginia Tech was in there for a little bit. I think he's committed to Ohio State. I think Penn State was in on him as well. But yeah, I mean, you're definitely going to go out there for quarterbacks for sure. But even other positions, I wouldn't be shocked to see them do that in the future.
Has there been any of these like Texas, California guys that you're hearing like what they're hearing from Virginia Tech, like what they're seeing with the vision of the program yet?
Yeah, there's one from Texas. I'm not going to be able to find his name right now. He's an edge prospect that I'm watching. I feel so bad. I'm going to mess up his name. I can remember his high school, but I can't remember his name. But yeah, I would say you're seeing some success there. That there's definitely at least one guy from Texas that's on my mind.
Hold on. Hold on. I got the list up here. First of all, I don't remember any of the last 10 years lists of offers being this big. Maybe I just didn't look at the right time. Like they shot
out a ton. I mean, and even just talking to different people, like there was one year I think at Penn State he offered like 300 wide receivers or something. It's like or something crazy. So it's insanely hard to track. And even for them right now, like I don't want it to be undersold. Like they don't have now in years moving forward, they certainly will as they build out this infrastructure, right? And they have a better footing of what they want, but they don't have this really clear board. Like we were talking about Chris Whitehead, they're not going to tell him no, right? Like they're going to take it. That's a guy they're going to take. But some of these other guys, it's like, we don't know yet. Like we're still building out our board. We're still familiarizing with your coaches, like a Junior Sanders, they're taking him, right? Elijah Hutchinson, like those top of the board guys, okay, take whenever. But some of these other guys are having for OVs. It's like that's why the dead period was so big. And even in this, like still now, like it's like, what's your quarterback room going to look like? What's our third wide receiver? What's our second tight end? What's our fourth offensive lineman? You know, like we feel good about these guys, but beyond that, we're still trying to flesh out our board.
Got it. Well, it's really funny because I thought when I went to Edge here, it would be like one guy. No, they have 3 offers. A guy from Denton Geyer, a guy from, we get down here to the other ones, Cy Falls and Cedar Hill.
Yeah, that's say the 2 names. Hang on, it's
Jerron Allen II, James Harris.
It's James Harris. That's the one, and he goes to is it
Cy Falls, C Falls.
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah.
Okay. James.
Now, I just wanted to keep an eye on. I'm not saying anything crazy, but that was the one that comes to mind that I would.
No, well, yeah, I understand what you're saying, but what you're hearing is someone from there with the James Franklin pitch and with the vision, like
he might get up for a spring visit. You know, like that's kind of rare to have a guy from Texas, right? Like it's not a trip from even Greensboro, North Carolina, or even Columbus, Ohio. Like that's a real trip, you know? Yeah.
That is a real trip. Brian, anything else we want to close Kolby out here with, man? Because, dude, we've been sitting here an hour. It's been a blast hearing your takes. By the way, the best thing you do, Kolby, is like the Deloach story. Kolby, anytime you're with us, if you want to go off on a side story, that's what we're all about here because it makes it real, man. It makes it because we're just having a conversation about something we all 3 love.
Dude, I was just thinking about it, like, I just feel like there's so much that you're acquainted or like adjacent to, and you like I feel like I don't keep enough notes because if someone brings it up, it like sparks your memory. But it's like until you think about that Deloach thing or whatever, like even I remember the one that blew up a little bit was the Pro Day one, right? Like when they were doing the heating, or that was something I never even thought to talk about until the heating came in, and then there was a big crash out on the Pro Day where the scout kind of got in Brent Pry's face and was like, "You need to have heating in here." And Brent thought it was like a joke, and then there was that whole kerfuffle. But there's just so. I mean, even in the couple years I've been around it, there's always something. There's always a story. But yeah, we'll see. Maybe that Lonnie Andrews thing plays out just like that. But the Jamari Deloach, I think he's gonna be a special player. I think you're gonna see a lot of him this year. Those 3 guys, I've said it since they got there. Knowledge Harrell, he might be moving back to safety, which I've kind of said since he got there. JoJo Krem, who sounds like he was a little banged up. I think he'll be fine for spring. And Jamar Deloach, probably at nickel. Like, I know you like Isaiah Brown Murray, Tyson Flower, like awesome guys. Go check out on my YouTube channel. Got great interviews with them there. Like really awesome guys. Appreciate them. But I think those young 3 guys from last year, it's going to be tough to keep those guys off the field.
Pushing. And that's what you want.
We've been banging the Knowledge Herald drum here, and obviously Deloach, I mean, just incredible athlete. So I'm excited to see what he can do, kind of getting into the mix there at nickel. So
and what you want is the young guys pushing the veterans, the guys that you've seen, like an IBM, like a Flowers. We know they can play solid D1 football. You want the young guys pushing, because if they're pushing, basically they're saying, I'm coming to take your job. You better give it 110 all the time, or we'll take your job. So
you're raising the talent level, and you're adding depth in there. So like either way, it's a win.
I mean, it's what we said off the top. Like, you got to have talent at all those levels to make everyone better at practice, and they've done that. So
100%. Kolby, anything tell people where they can follow you, anything going on 247 right now that people might be interested in?
Yeah, man, it's going to be busy this coming week. I appreciate you guys had me on here for spring break, because next week we're going to be after it. We'll see what spring ball looks like, but you can follow me on X at Kolby_Crawford. Check out the YouTube channel. Let's just type in Kolby Crawford. Should have a promo code Kolby for VTScoop in the next week. So don't tell the bosses. Maybe don't get the VIP yet until next Tuesday. Might have a sweet deal for you. But yeah, over there it'll be. I mean, I feel like we've already had a ton of different Team Scoop, but Team Scoop, when the transfer portal gets rocking, there's no better place to be. High school recruiting is going to be crazy coming up. So yeah, no better place to be than over there.
All right, well, check him out. Kolby, we appreciate you joining us tonight. That does wrap up this episode of the Boundary Corner podcast, brought to you by Moments on the Maury in Lexington, along with our special guest, Kolby Crawford from 247. I'm Curtis Wilson.
I'm Brian Siegler.
Jonathan Talley, we hope, is safe. Shelton Moss is at some baseball field. That's all I know. Check out Boundary Corner.
I'll pinch it.
There you go. Come down and pinch it. Check out BoundaryCornerBT.com to listen to all of our episodes. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. Subscribe for our YouTube channel. For those who are wondering, Twitter, we used to have a bunch of people come on. Twitter is screwed up with streams right now. We've been trying to figure it out. It sucks because Twitter is the thing so many people are on. Hopefully it's fixed soon. So if you usually follow us on Twitter, if you see us going live on Tuesday, Wednesday nights, go to YouTube, please. It's right on the the Twitter page. As always, we are in everywhere you can think of podcast-wise. As always, our buddy Jason Long, he plays us in. He plays us out every week. Check out jasonlongmusic.com, where you can link to all of his music on YouTube, Facebook, his Spotify pages. Check him out. He is going to be cranking up for the spring. Lots of dates, so check out the live upcoming performances. He's all around the greater Roanoke Valley area. We appreciate y'all for listening. And as always, let's go.
Hokies.